Hello, welcome. In today's video we're going to compare Kodak XX compared to Kentmere 400. I was interested to find the best 400 speed budget black and white film for 2025, and the options really probably come down to my favourites being either Kentmere 400 or the Kodak XX movie film. Now, I'm not new to film photography. I've been shooting film for over a decade and I develop and scan the film myself. And I've also shot 400 foot of XX, so I have some idea of what this film can do. I've also been shooting Kentmere since before it was available in the UK. I used to import it from Europe back maybe, I don't know, I'll put a date on the screen, 7-8 years ago. Amazing film, but I wanted to see if I need one film for 2025 onwards, how does XX compare to Kentmere? The good thing is with Kodak XX, in recent years, people now spool XX from the original 400 foot cans or 1,000 foot cans onto individual canisters, so you can buy individual canisters from either eBay or some online stores. A shout out to Analog Cameras. Down at Analog Cameras, kindly supply me with these. They cost I think around £7 each, which is probably similar or maybe slightly more expensive than Kentmere. Again, I'll put the two prices on the screen. I have shot Kodak XX in the past from 100 to 1000 without any issues. And I've also shot Kentmere for 100 to 800 with no issues. I wanted to do a test today to compare both films at different exposures and also using yellow filters and red filters, so I know whether or not I need to use filters. There is some rumours or some data that suggests that Kodak XX doesn't benefit from either a yellow filter or a red filter. I have just developed the Kodak XX and the Kentmere 400 both in the same pattern tank. I use Kodak XL 1:3 dilution, 20 degrees, 2 inversions. I tend to do semi-stand processing. If you follow me on the blog and things, you will know that I do that. And then I digitize with a CL scanner setup. I'll show you that at the end. And then flip them in Lightroom, and I wanted to see how the results compare. I decided to be a bit more scientific for this test, so I shot a color checker chart thing, and then that allowed me to see the impact of the different filters and also how the films compare at different exposures when they're developed in the same chemistry, in the same tank and shot at the same conditions. So let's now jump into Lightroom and take a look. I've got one roll of Kentmere, one roll of XX. Let's first of all see if you can tell the difference if we do a blind test. I did some test shot photos to try to, can you tell at first glance which is Kentmere, which is XX? Any guesses? Red is one film stock, yellow is another film stock. You've got a first photo correctly exposed, second photos is yellow filter, third photos is red filter, fourth photos is underexposed by one stop and then corrected after in scanning. Okay, so if you take a closer look, now you can see that the one on the left from the sticker is Kentmere, the one on the right was shot with Kodak XX. First glance, any thoughts? I would say there is more contrast in the Kodak XX, which is perhaps to be expected if you read any reviews on this kind of thing, trying to work out how the two stocks compare. XX is higher contrast and the Kentmere tends to have more detail in the grey areas or more grey areas. So if we zoom in, so I'd say because of the slightly brighter look, I think the XX appears sharper. But if you look at it, I think the sharpness is pretty much identical. Comment below which you think. As I say, because the whites are whiter on the XX, I think that gives the apparent appearance that it is sharper. In terms of grain structure, I'd say fairly similar on both. Again, let me know what you think. And with a quick tweak of the sliders in Lightroom, you could easily make the Kentmere look the same as the XX or the XX look the same as the Kentmere. Okay, one thing I wanted to do from this test was to see the impact of yellow filters and red filters. So the photos on the left is no filter for the correct exposure. I tested the exposure first with digital. The middle two photos are overexposed by one stop and then yellow filter added to give you the same exposure. So that should darken the area above the color checker, which is blue sky, believe it or not. And you can see the yellow filter on Kentmere doesn't really do anything to the sky. It's similar to the first photo, and likewise the yellow filter on Kodak XX also seems to do nothing. It's almost lighter. You can see that the yellow does brighten the yellows because the square that would be yellow on the color checker is brighter than you can see here than on the first photo on both, and I think it's even brighter with the XX. The reds are slightly lighter to be expected, but the blues don't have a huge difference. What about red filter? So for the red filter test, I overexposed by 2 stops and then added a red filter to give you a similar exposure to the original one, because red filters reduce the amount of light hitting the film. Now you can see the reds are even lighter, which is this square. Yellows are more or less the same, and the sky is now slightly darker, but again it's hardly any difference whatsoever. And again with a double X, almost no difference. So my conclusion from this is I no longer need to bother using yellow or red filters or any color filters when I'm using Kentmere 400 or Kodak XX film if I'm trying to darken a blue sky on like a blue sky day. The advantage of not using filters is, number one, it's less kit to carry, especially using different lenses with different sizes. And secondly, filters reduce the amount of light hitting your film, so you can work in darker conditions with the same lens. Okay, let's now look at some example photos with Kentmere 400 first. So these photos are developed at home and scanned at home. I'll show you the setup at the end. And if I quickly whiz through, these photos are shot with a new lens from Light Lens Lab. Subscribe if you want to see that. As you can see, decent sharpness on the eyes there. Again, great sharpness. This is shooting a new lens wide open at f2. Lens review to come. This is the new Light Lens Lab 50 f2 rigid. I can put a link below to Light Lens Lab if you want to get Light Lens Lab stuff. Now this is different. So now this is shot with the brand new Voigtlander 90 f2 Apo Ultron, which I just did a video on. They've seemed to have designed the lens where it's soft f2, which might be great for portraits on digital, and then it gets sharp from f2.8. This is shot at f2. As you can see, it's too soft. The eyes are not in focus, or maybe I missed. This is the f2. Again, still they're not in focus, or I missed. f2, not in focus, or I missed. f2, not in focus, or I missed. So with that lens, it's amazing on digital, but maybe it seems like it maybe not being the best choice for me for film. Okay, changing to a different lens. Again, still Kentmere 400. This is without filters, all of these photos. And I just adjust the contrast to taste in Lightroom. I basically made my own presets to flip my negatives from a negative to a positive, as you would with, say, Negative Lab Pro, but it's obviously much cheaper just by a preset. And then adjust the contrast and things to taste depending on the lighting conditions. This was with a 135mm lens, so I was able to get the foreground bokeh, which is a novelty for me because I tend to shoot with 50mm lenses. You can see good contrast with the Kentmere 400 once you work the files. This is all just done in Lightroom, so it's no kind of fancy editing as such. I quite like this one as well. This is shooting into the light, which can be troublesome with film because sometimes you get kind of grey blacks, but this worked out well. I'm pretty happy with this. It reminds me of the Afghan girl. Let me know in the comments if you can see the resemblance. These are all shot in Poland. This one I'm really happy with. Love the contrast. So this is Kentmere, just to remind you. You can see at the bottom if it's in the screenshot. Kentmere 400 at 400 with a Leica MDA and then 135mm f2.8 Elmerite lens. See my video on the 135mm lenses. They're super cheap. Again, foreground bokeh. But loving the contrast. I was using a lens hood, but the lens did particularly well, I think, for a vintage lens, considering I'm shooting into the light, and then the film did the rest. Again, really love the contrast, great details, more than sharp enough for me. Very happy. Hey guys, editor Matt here. Just interrupting the video. Sorry for the confusion with the voiceover for the last photos. I was shooting both XX and Kentmere side by side with 2 different cameras. So what I've done is I've just scanned the third roll of film, which is also XX, also in the same tank. So settings exactly the same as what you're seeing for the rest of the film shared in this video. I've just coloured it purple so I don't get confused even more. And so now let me quickly show you photos from exactly the same setting this time with the Leica MDA, as I thought I was using for the last mentioned film. This is a vintage lens, so you're going to see more flare, as you can see, more compression because it's 135mm instead of 90. Look at that. I'm pretty happy with that. I've got like a big grin on my face. I've just scanned it. I'm like, ooh, it's really nice. I did cut a foot off, but that's partly because of the scan is a 90% scan of the original. So if I print it in my darkroom or bathroom, it won't be a problem. So let me quickly whiz through these so you can see the difference. So these are XX with vintage lens, 135 f2.8 or 135 f4. Okay, so just whizzing through. Really happy. So as I say, these are XX exposed at 400. You may wonder in this video why I keep talking about doing it at 400. Oh, I love that. It looks so vintage. So nice. So this is me shooting. Sorry, you're hearing this first time around. I'm shooting towards the sun, so even though I've got a lens hood, I'm getting flare, but it just smokes the blacks really nicely and gives it like a real vintage look. Not bad for 2025. It looks like she could be much older in terms of the time it was taken. I'm just checking there's no like Apple Watch in the frame. So yeah, this is shooting towards the light with an older lens. So compared to the brand new Voigtlander lens, 2025 lens, it's going back to the same ones. You're going to get lower contrast, which can be very flattering for portraits, but also you're going to flare more when shooting towards the light. So just be aware of that. This is that white band I keep seeing on a lot of the images. At first I thought maybe it's a developing mark where, let's say, there might not have been enough developer in the tank, even though there was 1 litre chemicals. What I thought may have happened is the top of the 3 reels rose to the top when I inverted the tank, and so it was on the very top of the central spindle, therefore not quite in the solution. That would make sense for 1 roll, but I'm not sure about all 3. See, it's on all of them. But I'm not sure about 3 rolls because obviously the two films lower down won't be impacted by that solution or that theory. Let me know what you think. The problem with shooting so close with a VisoFlex setup at a very shallow depth field, if I breathe or if the model breathes and moves even the slightest, I'm going to slightly miss focus. So that's what happened there. As you can see, as I step back a bit, I've got more depth, and so yeah, pretty much nailed it. And then nice separation from the background. You can see how cold it is. It's literally like a ball of clothes. Just a few more before we cut back to the original video. Really cool Afghan vibes, Afghan girl vibes, I think anyway. Let me know what you think. So this is all XX at 400, and I say it's at 400 because when I shot the 400-foot roll, whenever I developed it, I always seem to have it slightly overexposed if I developed it at 250. So since then I've always assumed it's a 400 speed film from my style of developing. Okay, back to the video. Now as also I kind of put it upon myself to try to record some of the older buildings in the docks in Gdansk because at some point they're going to be knocked down, and so I think it's nice to have a record, especially on film. So that's what this was, and then I did more with XX. If we skip the scanning photos, which were near the end, and then here's a few selfies to finish the film. So this is the kit I was using, or some of the kit I was using in Poland. This is actually the Tele Almar 135 f4, as you can see. Just a quick mirror selfie. So not the best light, so ideally I would have had more separation here, but yeah, I was just finishing the film. I thought I'd better change it to something a bit smarter. So this is the same photo a little bit later when I had shirts and stuff on, ready to go out. And you see good sharpness, good clarity, happy. Filmed it good, lens did well. Model is questionable. Okay, right, so that's Kentmere 400. Try and keep that in your head. If we now look at Kodak XX, so this is Kodak XX. So first of all, you think it's a contrastier film, but as you can see, 100%, it's obvious, but 100% depends on the lighting conditions and the lens that you're using on the day. This actually looks less contrasty than the photos we've just been looking at. It was a grey day, and I'm shooting slightly up, which is going to give a lower contrast look. One thing I noticed is there is some marks on some of these photos, so I don't know if that's a film defect, where Kodak, you normally shouldn't see film defects compared to maybe the very budget films. And Kentmere, they seem to have a very good quality control. I've never seen defects on Kentmere, but yeah, I just noticed that here. This is a lens where I stole the innards of the lens from Thomas and put it onto my camera. See my VisoFlex stuff if you're interested. Same photo from a bit further back. Still good detail, but again, look, it looks lower contrast. So don't always assume that high contrast film is kind of the be all and end all. This is kind of a special tilt shift look. You see it's all blurry here at the edges and here, but nice and sharp in the center. I thought that would be nice, so I'll put a link below to a Patreon video once I've done it, explaining this. It wasn't planned. So all the photos you're going to see, or many of the photos you're going to see coming up, I've got this kind of tilt shift look. It's not quite tilt shift, but very soft edges. Soviet style playground in Poland. Quite cool to see things that used to be made properly with wood and just old school style. Here you can see the soft edges. Look here, look where it all falls away, and here, and then sharp in the center. The blacks do perhaps look blacker and the whites, well, as black, and the whites as white as what we saw with Kentmere. Typical train shot, again, central sharpness, soft at the edges because of the lens I was using. Another train photo. I guess I'm a bit of a train spotter, but what I'm particularly trying to do is photograph the old trains before everything gets replaced with trains like that. So Poland has particularly old trains, or some particularly old trains on some lines, so whenever I'm there as a tourist I try to grab a few shots. Same again, I was focusing here, but because of the lens I was using, you got the soft edge, that's why that looks blurry at the top. Again by the docks. I thought it was quite nice to see the old housing in the foreground and then the docks in the background. Apart from the satellite dishes, it could be a much older photo. Again, this is in the docks, trying to capture the old warehouses and things before kind of they get turned into apartment blocks or get flattened or whatever. They've already started to clear some things, which is sad, because I thought these things are like they're almost like a tourist attraction. They're so old and iconic in Gdansk. Me there with Thomas. This boat I've photographed over the last 10 years. They keep kind of moving it around the docks, but I spotted it again, so I thought I'd grab another shot. 135mm that is again. Another 135mm. See the soft edges. One question to you guys. Some of my photos, or maybe more than half of my photos, I've got like a white highlight band on one side, all on one side, all the same width. It's a bit wider than that, and I'm not sure if it's the shutter issue or if it's the VisoFlex maybe going at a different speed to the shutter. If you got any thoughts, let me know. For reference, all the photos you're seeing are like a crop of maybe 90% of the original negative. It's just the way my digital scanning works. My robot friend dog walking in Gdansk, again, quite iconic if you've ever been to Gdansk. And I think that's it. So if we go back to all photos, did you see a huge difference between the Kentmere photos and the Kodak XX photos? For me, I think if I can find Kentmere 400 for less than Kodak XX, I'm probably going to switch to Kentmere 400 for the near future. I have been getting very good results from this, and for me I prefer to have a lower contrast negative that I can then adjust to my liking in post than a overly contrasty negative, which is then difficult to recover in post. One big benefit of the Kentmere 400, as you can see, if I'm shooting at 800, Kentmere is a great choice for shooting at 800. Kodak XX is okay at 800, but I think that it looked cleaner with Kentmere. If you then want to push your film 2 stops, so 400 to 1600, as other people have shown, Kentmere is also a great choice. Because I developed both films at ISO 400, I always think of XX as a 400 speed film, but actually it says 250 on the can. I've always exposed to 400 when I shot this big roll, or a lot of the roll. So with both at 400, I developed at 16 minutes. When I shot Kentmere Pan 400 at 800 in Porto, I can bring up some sample images. I developed for 18 minutes, so an additional 2 minutes. If I then want to shoot Kentmere Pan 400 at say ISO 1600, I'll maybe do 20 minutes developing time just to let the shadows develop a little more. So that's the plan, but definitely both great for ISO 800, especially Kentmere. I seem to be getting cleaner, slightly sharper looking results from Kentmere, even though I'm not sure if that came through fully in today's results. Let me know in the comments, what do you prefer? Have you tried Kentmere 400? These are both classed as budget films in 2025, and they are some of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, 400 speed black and white films you can get in the UK. I know Pan 400 has got a cult following as well, but for my taste, I prefer the more modern rendering captured with Kentmere 400. If you're interested on how I scan my film, check out my video. I can link it here next. I use a Leica CL with a Veloy EZ35 scanner unit attached to the end, and that's how I scanned all the negatives you saw in today's video. Okay, so to quickly explain my scanning process, on the left you have the original scans. These are DNG files from the Leica CL. Then in the center you have the same scans inverted with my Mr. Leica film scan inversion preset. I did actually zero the clarity, sharpness and everything in this test because I wanted to get the most accurate testing. So that just gives you the most blacks and whites as you can get, more or less. And then I then export those as TIFF files and then edit the TIFF files, which are the two photos on the right. That then allows me to drag up the shadow details to give you a wider dynamic range. So as you can see, the grain is now greater in the final image because I've lifted the highlights or lifted the shadow detail to give the maximum kind of tonal range across the image. And that's the same for Kentmere on the top and Kodak XX on the bottom. If you want to quickly zoom in on the original negatives, let's do that quickly. So if we take a close look at the original film scans, these are raw files, as I say, shot with the Leica CL or digitized with the Leica CL. On the left, you've got the Kodak XX. On the right, you've got Kentmere. You can see that the Kodak XX has got blacker blacks because the whites are whiter. Obviously, it's inverted, and whiter whites because the blacks are blacker compared to the Kentmere. So the Kentmere is more of a grayscale film as the original scan, and the Kodak XX has got more pop straight out of the scanner because of the higher contrast. I'm just looking closer. In terms of sharpness, XX maybe looks slightly sharper, but I think it's only because of the additional contrast. Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this quick no frills video. I'll try to do more so I can just share more information faster. If you enjoy these style of information videos, hit the like button. Thanks to my patrons and hope to catch you in the next video.